everybody, welcome back to the channel Off the Underside. We've got another fantastic guest again this week. He's former Rangers, Nottingham Forest and Brentford manager. It's Mr. Mark Warburton. How you doing, sir?
Very well, Jamie. Hope you're well.
Yeah, all good, mate, all good. I know that you're in America at the moment, mate. I know you're a busy man, so thanks very much for your time.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure.
On this channel, Mark, we like to go back to the very start. You were born in London, grew up there. What's your earliest memories of wanting to play football?
It's memories of being born in Tottenham, so a Tottenham fan, and then going to the old White Hart Lane, obviously, is the early memories. And then as a kid, you just remember the game. You just loved the game. You just lived the brick wall opposite and the ball, and you just smashed the ball against the wall as many times a day as you possibly could. So, yeah, you just same as yourselves, gents. You just born playing football and just love the game completely.
I definitely. You started your playing career with Leicester. What was your early aspirations at that time?
You know what, Coy? It was you go there as not in an arrogant way, but you go there as a good player, like school, district, county, nationals, etc. You go there as a good player, and you get an apprenticeship. And I was signed by Frank McClintock, the old Scottish captain, Arsenal double-winning captain. His son Neil was a good friend, well, my best friend at school. So Frank was a manager. But by the time I was signed by Leicester and the season started, Frank had been sacked and Jock Wallace had been hired. So I walked into Jock Wallace, who, shall we say, is a different type of person to Frank. We all want to win, but let's just say Jock's ways were very, very different to Frank's ways. And that was the biggest awakening I've ever had in my life. And I've seen Jock's, wife and family and been always very respectful, with a fantastic career and fantastic record at Rangers, of course. But his way was unlike anything I was used to. I'm not saying turn me off football, that's too strong a statement, but it wasn't a great time in terms of playing under that type of regime.
Was that just sorry, you go, Jamie?
I was just going to say, was it just too much that you could, you just wanted to move on basically at that point?
It just got to the point, he was a massive, obviously huge Rangers fan. The kit was changed to Rangers. If Rangers had a game called off, the Leicester crowd was sold out. Thousands would come down and watch Jock. So his reputation, quite rightly, was so strong. But it was a really strong Scottish contingent. And, I won't tell you, I can't repeat the exact names he called me, but soft Southern this and London that and Cockney this. And you can imagine the words at the end of it. And it was just, now I understand, of course, listen, there's all different ways, and you might turn around and go, it makes a man of you and that. But I was 16 and coming out of an environment where you'd always been like one of those players and, certain ways of doing it. And then suddenly you're thrown into this. And it was like, I didn't know. I felt very, lacking in confidence and just bizarre, because you just felt that, you would scream and holler, and you can turn around, as I said, and you can say, that's what makes a man of you. That makes a footballer of you. But the biggest compliment I can pay him, I mean this full of respect, is that I knew then I would never train or coach or work with people like that, because it just didn't work for me. And there's many good players there that it worked really well for. Obviously, Gary Lineker was there, Stevie May, you had Andy Peake, and really good players. Larry May, the centre half, and whatever else, good players. But it didn't work for me. Simple as that. And as I say, when I saw his family years later, there I am sitting in his office in Ibrox, and quite remarkable. But I said it wasn't a lack of respect; it was just a very different way of doing things.
Was that just a school of hard knocks, pretty much?
Yeah, I guess so. And I went from there, and I had a couple of offers, and I ended up. My dad was a Geordie miner. My dad said, you have to go to work, son. Simple as that. That's how the older generation thought. And there was an advert in a paper for a competitive individual good with numbers. And my mum had been very, very good at numbers. I found numbers easy, always have done. And it was for trading in a major banks in the city. And at the same time, I was offered more money to go and play semi-pro for a team called Enfield, who were probably the best non-league team in the country at the time. And I did that. I was working at a bank from silly o'clock in the morning till silly o'clock at night, and then training twice a week, playing twice a week, and you're just full on, but you're young and you can just deal with it. Loved it.
I was just going to say that. How did you find your time at Enfield? Did you enjoy it there?
I enjoyed it because you're just playing older players. But what happened, Jamie, is that the city is, I know if you don't know it, people are going, oh, people who work in a bank. They've got no idea. You get in early in the morning. It's highly competitive. It's screaming pressure all day. I loved every minute of it, but it just takes more and more of your time. And the better you got. So I went to Charlotte, North Carolina, for a couple of years and played pro over there, but working for the bank who was sponsoring the team. But again, the trading just takes up more and more of your time, and you found yourself fully immersed in that. So you got to the point where you were doing so much of that, and I was traveling around, very lucky, Hong Kong, Singapore, Tokyo, New York, wherever you were going to, and you just fully absorbed in the job. So that was a point where really I was going around the world, and I was in Charlotte, for example. I'm 22 years old, and I'm coaching girls under. If you spoke with a British accent, they just presumed you knew football. So, I'm coaching the girls under 19, then the boys under 11 team, then the girls under 15, then the high school team, then the college team at UNC and ask you down, then the bank team. And you just find yourself coaching. And wherever I went in the world, Chicago, the same. I lived in Chicago, you start coaching teams. But you don't really, I didn't even know a badge, a qualification existed till I got back to the UK. I had no idea. And then my son was sort of like playing young football, and he was talented and went to academy and ended up being a pro. But I sort of asked, what badge do you have? And I didn't have one. I didn't know what it was. So I very quickly went through the badges. And then honestly, I was at Royal Bank of Scotland in London, in Bishopsgate, and I was on my A licence course with the likes of Dean Saunders, Ray Wilkins, Chris Coleman, Barry Horn, these type of people. I'm thinking Clayton Blackmore from Man U, and I'm thinking, wow, I watch these guys on TV, and I'm working the bank. And then I got offered a job full time, and that's where it all changed.
I was going to ask that you did leave football entirely for finance. Was that a hard decision, or was that necessary for the time?
But when you're young, Corey, I know it sounds a bit now when you look back, but when you're young, you're working and you're busy, and it wasn't like you're going to go and work in a library, for example. It was properly loud, competitive, aggressive, teamwork. We were throwing around millions and millions of dollars. People don't get that. People don't understand it. They just, you get some people, wherever your political views are, people will curse the bankers. But honestly, we got to the point at the end, well, later on when we were more mature, I was working at the biggest banks. You're turning over your desk of 10 people, say the three of us, but say 7 more like us. You're turning over 25 billion a day, not million, 25 billion a day. And people go, it can't be. But young guys, huge pressure, massive risk, teamwork, and it was a really competitive environment. So the fix of football was replaced really by the fix of the FX markets.
Right.
So see, when you were playing for Enfield and Bournemouth and working in the bank and stuff, was it always a yearning for you to go into coaching?
No, it wasn't. It was, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It just means this trading just absorbed you. I used to get up at 4:42, get the 5:12 train, get the office by 10 to 6 with coffee. You're talking to Tokyo at 6 o'clock. You get home at 7:30. Then the first New York would call to tell you what's happening at the end of their day. Then Tokyo would call at 1 in the morning to let you know what's happening, if anything was going on. And you might get 2 or 3 more calls in the night, and you're up at 4:42 again. So it was just totally absorbing, Jamie. It was completely, it just takes over, and you're well compensated if you do well. It's like football. If you do well, you get looked after. If you don't, you get sacked. You have a budget to make. If you don't make it, you get a warning, and then you're out. But I quite like that black and white nature of it. It's like football. If you do well, you get a new contract. If you don't, you move on. So that didn't bother me. But it wasn't until I was really coaching overseas, and then my son was asked to go to. He was born in '93, my son, so he was asked to go to Watford Academy, Arsenal Academy. He went to Watford in the end, and they asked me if they had no money. They said, "Would you help out?" And the coach said, "What badge you got?" "What's a badge?" I said to you earlier, "What's a badge?" I didn't know what a badge was. So I ended up doing my level 1 and 2 quickly, got onto the B license, and thankfully had some good people, and they accelerated me through that. They obviously did okay. They accelerated me through that, and I find myself on an A license course with those guys I mentioned earlier. And then suddenly you're literally with these people who are full-time you watch on TV, like the likes of Ray Wilkins, from Glasgow, and obviously his career, Chelsea and Man U and in Italy, etc. So that was the catalyst for me. And then Watford asked if I'd go full-time. No, that was a pay cut like you can't believe. I won't even tell you. that was just ludicrous. But I wasn't ready for it, though, in terms of I knew my knowledge wasn't deep enough. I knew I didn't know the level to be as impactful as I wanted to be. So I went around Europe for a year. Best thing I did. I phoned 40 odd clubs up. 43rd one picked up, a guy called Diego Matos. I've actually got to phone him back this afternoon. And he was at Sporting Lisbon, ex-Portuguese international, academy director. Invited, said, if you can get on a plane, come and play golf with me in the morning. I'll give you 5 hours of my time. Ended up great friend, still is a great friend years later, played golf. And I had 6 weeks at Sporting Lisbon. And then from there, he introduced me to PSV, to Ajax, to PSG, to Bayern Munich, to Barcelona, and away we went.
How was it at Barcelona? That must have been a real...
Yeah, it was a privilege because, to watch the first team, the Secunda B, and to watch the youth team train, how they replicate the session, how they move players up. But just this was at a time of, in the academy out of La Masia, you got the likes of Messi coming through and Puyol and all these various players, Iniesta and Xavi, and the world famous team of 20, which won the Champions League in 2010. It's that team coming through. So that was a real privilege. Loved every minute of it. So advanced, such nice people, but a real privilege to spend time there.
So going back to your time at Watford, you were obviously doing very well and stuff, and then Nicky Foster came out, went into Brentford and took you as first team coach. Was that a...
No, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. No, it was Watford had no money, and Matthew Benner, the Brentford owner, was obviously trying to buy Brentford, but he was hitting hurdles with like community people owning certain shares. So I tried to get Matthew to come to Watford, but he's a Brentford man. But he knew I'd been through that. And then when he sacked Andy Scott, the manager, he phoned me early hours of the morning to say, would you come in and coach a team for me? It was January, whenever it was, 20-something, 10 or 11, I think. And he said, would you come and coach a team? Nicky was a player. Nicky had never coached anyone. But Nicky was someone that the fans knew. They had no idea who I was, an academy director from Watford. So I went in and coached a team there, and that through Matthew. And then he asked me to be technical director. Uwe Rosler, the old Man City player, came in as manager. I wanted a job, Jamie. I wanted that job. I was annoyed I didn't get it. But in hindsight, the best thing I ever did was being a TD, because I could sign the players, sign the staff, departments in charge of medical, sports science, analytical, coaching, academy, first team, in charge of everything, which gave me a great insight into develop the football environment, but right for elite players. So I loved that. And then when Uwe moved on to Wigan, Matthew offered me the manager's job, and that was it.
At Brentford, you had a strong win record and helped to build the foundation the way the club is today. You're proud of that, Fit?
Yeah, very proud of that. Yeah, very proud of it. Obviously, great to have an owner like Matthew. Enormous respect for Matthew. He's still doing a wonderful job at a great club. But yeah, I felt I was there for 5 years. So a lot of the staff are still there. The kit man Bob's still there. Chris Haslam's just gone with Thomas Frank. Kevin O'Connor's still there. Tom's still there. Tom Payman. So the staff that we hired are still there 15 years later, 14 years later. So that's very pleasing. And don't forget, we got to the fringe of the Premier League. We got knocked out in the playoffs from Middlesbrough, and we just got promoted with Wolves. So we had a good win record. And yeah, I hope very much you can look back and say you had a nice part to play in that.
Since we're talking about Brentford, what's your thoughts just now on Thomas Frank obviously going to Spurs, and then what do you think the future holds for them?
I think he's a lovely guy. Forget everything else. He's a genuinely nice individual. He's a good human. I like a lot. Always like speaking to Thomas. Done a great job at Brentford. You can see that, in terms of the players and the playing style, and they've become an established Premier League team, which is so hard to do. So I look forward to it. He can't turn down. I'm sure he's very happy at Brentford. And he said, although I thought he handled it really well. But I think Brentford would knew that the day would come when he would hopefully move on. Because if he moves on, then it means he's done really well for Brentford. So they win as well. And the fact now, how do you turn down Tottenham? The best stadium in the world, probably one of the best training grounds in the world. So for Thomas, a really exciting opportunity that I think anyone would agree, Jamie, is really hard to turn down.
You're not saying that with any bias there with Tottenham?
No, not at all. I just think that's the dream job for me. So I'm envious in a nice way of Thomas, but you can't turn that down. They've got European football, the stadium, which is magnificent, and he's taken some staff with him. He's inheriting a good squad of players. They're fresh from the success of the Europa League, so I'm sure he'll be just excited. He'll be like Kid on Christmas morning, I'm sure, in a nice way. He'll be looking forward to it, and I bet he can't wait to get started.
Where did you stand on Ange? Did you think he should have stayed, or?
I just thought that the moment there was no message of support from Daniel Levy, the chairman, it was done. I mean, everyone's saying, will he, won't he, will he, won't he? And it carried on for ages, what seemed like ages. But I'm thinking there's no message of support. When I watched the final with United and you saw Jim Ratcliffe give the manager a massive hug and whatever else at the end of it, and then you didn't see the same, I'm thinking, Ange is gone. Whether I think it's right or wrong doesn't matter. The fact is that I thought it was clear the moment there wasn't once there was no statement of support, in other words, Ange is with us next season and looking forward to developing the club. Once it didn't come forward, then I think everyone obviously knew he was headed for the exit door, unfortunately.
It just shows you that the league's your bread and butter, though, because if Tottenham had finished 5th and not won a trophy, it'd probably still be there. So
yeah, he would have been. He would be there. And the fact is that the Premier League is, whatever you say, I mean, there's very few teams in the Premier League. Of course, the Arsenal's, Liverpool's, and that, Tottenham normally. But the first aim every season for at least 13, 14 clubs is surviving the Premier League. There's 180 million reasons why. Just surviving the Premier League, because that's the bread and butter, Jamie, as you said. So I'm sure that, league Spurs finishing 17th, 16th, 17th is not acceptable to the chairman. They won the trophy, and Ange quite rightly can turn around and say, great achievement, fantastic achievement. That's not for me, but clearly the chairman saw it a different way.
Just going back on Brentford and their model, do you think it's proved the doubters wrong quite a bit with the data-driven recruitment?
Yeah, Matthew's a mathematical genius. Has his algorithms and his formula, and I think I think there's still a balance. There's definitely a balance in terms of the human eye, whether that is 80-20 now in terms of data or 75-25, whatever you may think it is. But he's shown that him and obviously Tony Bloom at Brighton, the two clubs have been outstanding in their recruitment. Look at the players Brighton have signed as well. Look at the players like, Vista comes from nowhere and Buemo comes from nowhere, Tony and all this. But then you look at Brighton with Cucurella and McAllister and all these various players. So their recruitment is outstanding. And they've shown that everyone goes to me, it's like Moneyball. It's Moneyball times 10, in all honesty. It's Moneyball times a lot. So much goes into it, but two very, very clever gentlemen.
Looking back in your time there, obviously you did have a good bit of success, getting promotion. How do you feel that things ended there?
Not as I wanted, because it was simple, really. Matthew won't mind us. I have enormous respect for Matthew. The owners write the checks, Jamie. Whatever a manager says and curses and feels hard done by, and I can say that what happened to Rangers. And the fact is, the owners write the checks. So, Matthew wanted to bring in a number of foreign players in January. We were second at the table to Bournemouth at the time. I didn't think it was the right thing to do. I wanted to do it in the summer, not then when we were right in the middle of it. I still know that's the right thing that we did. But Matthew, obviously, I was sitting in the office and Davey Weir said to me, you read this? I went, read what? He said, Rayo Vallecano coach turns down Brentford job. So I'm looking, literally, where's that come from? It was like, we were up there with Bournemouth going for promotion. And I phoned Matthew, and Matthew never lies. Matthew went, yeah, I need to speak to you about that. So I said, did lunch tomorrow? He went, yep, we had lunch tomorrow. And he said, yeah, I'm going to. I said, so even if we get promotion to the Premier League, I'm still sacked. He was like, yeah. So I went, okay, do you want me to stay on? He went, do you mind? I went, no, that's fine. And that literally was how it went. So we stayed on. And had we got promoted to the Premier League, I would still have been sacked. But I don't, at the end of the day, as I said to you, I don't want to sound like a holier than thou. The fact is, owners write the checks. What happened to Nottingham Forest was ridiculous, scandalous. We hit every KPI they set. You get sacked. It's football. They're the owners. They write the checks. They can make their decisions to make. So you and I can curse about it and say what we like, but the fact is, they're the owners.
No. But it just seems a bit cutthroat, like you're saying, you were so close to the Premier League. You would think maybe give you the end of the season until even contemplating that.
Yeah, but that's not Matthew's way. And as I say, I've enormous respect. And you saw we played Watford the first game after the news broke, and the players ran round. Andre Gay scored, and the players all ran round to a man, jumped all over us, which was a lovely show of support by the players. Eternally grateful to them. Great squad of players. I still speak to many of them now. But that's football. That's football. What happened? Matthew made his call, and that was his explanation. I can accept that more than I can, for example, Rangers. Rangers were just wrong. But, again, you're not the owner. They write the checks, and you have to respect that fact.
You just mentioned them there, mate. Rangers 2015, after you left Brentford, Rangers came calling. How did that move come about?
Yeah, I was very lucky. My CV was good, Jamie, in terms of we got promotion with Wolves. We were playing a good brand of football. The players we had signed, like Frank and David, myself, you look at the likes of Tarkowski and Judge and, Forshaw, Stewie Dallas, who went on a great career at Leeds. And, we signed a lot of young talent who went on and made a lot of money for the club and for themselves. So my stock was high. And I had some big clubs, thankfully, very privileged big clubs offering me long-term deals. And then David Weir said, you need to speak to Rangers as well. And Rangers have been in the Championship, right? So massive club, but I had a first meeting and it was good, very positive in London, but I still had these other big offers. And then I tell the truth, they wanted a second meeting, and I've repeated this, I apologise, but my son played me a clip. My son was a pro and played me a clip, Penny Arcade, Rangers versus Celtic, Old Firm, whatever it was, 8 minutes long. And he said, you can't turn this down. You really cannot turn this down. And that was it. That was sold on that. So, that when I had a second meeting, went really well, good people. And then you realise the size of Rangers and the privilege it is to be manager there. So, I had to, no doubt I'd take that offer.
You did take over Rangers. It's a turbulent time. What was the state of the club when you arrived, and how did you go about rebuilding that team?
Well, we had 9 players, Corey. First day, I think the chairman had got rid of 13. We had 9, literally, and I asked the academy for 1, and they sent me a player who was going out on loan called Barry Mackay. And within 10 minutes, we said, we'll keep him. That was a no-brainer. But we had 9 players plus Barry. Finances were really tight, very, very tight. But the directive from the board was promotion is non-negotiable. That was it. So we had a good season. We won the Training Cup. We won the league by 11 points, and we obviously beat Celtic in that semi-final, and we let ourselves down at the end of the final, but we had a good season overall.
Yeah, I still have memories of that semi-final, to be fair.
It was a good day for the blue side of Glasgow, and it meant a lot.
I was on the opposite side of Glasgow.
I think this is the point we tell you we're both Celtic fans.
We're both Celtic supporters.
You kept that very quiet, you two. Is that we cutting off now straight away?
No.
That was a good day for the blue side, right? So I've got a message to you. I apologise. That was a good day, and obviously the trouble was it heightened expectation there. That was a mad thing. It got we walked in the first game of pre-season. It was difficult. I walked out to the stadium early, and it's going for 55 on the far side. And Celtic's budget was multiples of ours. You had a team packed of internationals. You had Rogic and Shevchenko and Armstrong and Brown and Griffiths and Roberts all over the park. And then we had kids, Gideon Zalalam on loan, great kid, good player, talented player, but 18. Don Paul on loan from the Spurs youth team, and this type of thing. We were a really young team. Nowhere near the pay level, the pay bracket, and the experience of Celtic. So when they say going 55, it just lit a blue touch paper, and I literally walked in and went, who on earth put that up there? And to this day, I still can't believe it was done, because it was like a cauldron, Glasgow, the Ibrox that day. And it should have been a festival of being back in the Premier League. It was almost like we drew with Hamilton, and then the press slaughtered us as if we got beat 5-0. And that's when you knew the expectation had gone out of control.
That's what I was going to ask. How did you find the pressure and the intensity of Scottish football, especially dealing with a club like Rangers?
I loved it. I've got to be honest with you. So you give me 1 second. I've just got to really put the owners on. Can I? Cool. 15. Apologies. I loved it. I loved it because I think the media are out of order in Scotland. I think what they say, when I first got there, they were killing Ronnie Dyler, but he was top of the SPFL and then going for the cups, and they killed him. And I just thought it would never happen. Some of that rhetoric that was used in Glasgow, I found out second year. And someone told me there's always a good cop and a bad cop in Glasgow. I was a good cop first year, bad cop second year, but I just loved the expectation of the size of Rangers. I love the history of the clubs. I loved the privilege of being a manager of a great club, you know. And I'm saying this not to upset anyone. Whether you're Rangers or Celtic, they're two global institutions in terms of football. If the two of them played football tomorrow in Boston or Chicago, there'd be an 80,000 sellout. You know, everyone knows who Rangers and Celtic are. So to be manager of a club like that is a huge privilege.
I think the one thing you've got to take a lot of credit for as well is the players that you brought in. You know, you brought in Tavernier, who everybody knows. Look what he's doing now. You brought in Waghorn, players like that. How did you identify these guys?
Yes, we just knew the market, and obviously in Frank and David, myself, the three of us always did it. But people like Rob Kiernan, Danny Wilson, Wes Foderingham came on, was playing Premier League after Rangers. So, you know, very, very pleased. That great to see where Tab is now. But yeah, it was just we had no money. We had to go and get. Everyone goes, oh, you spent. You know, the Celtic fans would say, oh, you spent fortunes. They were all free. Clinton Hill free. Nico Cranchar free. And they went, oh, you're on 20. I remember I read a report that Nico Cranchar was on 25 grand a week, and Nico and I were laughing our heads off. I'd flown to New York. He was playing for Cosmos. He was an hour, probably a stone overweight, and we got him for like a fraction of what the press said because he wanted to come over and prove himself. But these are the rumours, of course. When they go around there, then people read it and they believe it. And then they'll say, why aren't you paying 25 grand a week, Cranchar? Nico A was a world-class player. You know, he's obviously beyond his best. He won't mind me saying that. Still a world-class technician. It was on a fraction of that. Clint Hill, great pro, top centre-half, but free transfer on nothing wages. And we had no money. So I know, obviously, the Celtic buyers will say we did. I promise you, you know, we had the wages, what they were on 2 or 3 years later. My biggest frustration was A, how they ended it, and B, they suddenly gave the next manager, Pedro, loads of money when we had no money, and that was the biggest frustration.
Definitely. I was going to just ask, is there anything you could probably do differently looking back, dealing with the scrutiny of the media?
Yeah, if I look back, I wanted to go second year. I've always gone with young players, hungry players, like Tav, like Waggy, like Robbie, etc. And I should have, second year, the expectation of Celtic and the need to have some more seniority, like Clint, etc. But I should have, in hindsight, probably gone more towards the younger ones as well. Clint, yes, Nico, but I should have gone to the younger ones and kept faith with that energy. That's probably one. And the other one, probably to be more vocal in the media. I was told that I had to have an ego. To hear me out in this one. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, like, when we beat the semi-final, obviously it wasn't good for you boys, but when the semi-final won, they said you should have run round in front of the Rangers, pumping your chest. And I don't feel I'd earned that. You can't come in from England as an outsider. You've got to earn the respect of fans. Whether you're Rangers or Celtic, you've got to earn the respect of the fans. You can't be running around. They think I'm an idiot if I ran around there and slid to my knees and started pulling the chest. I've been there 5 minutes. So for me, they said to me, oh, you need to show more passion. I'm thinking, no, I just need to get the job done. When you earn the right in front of your fans, whether it's blue or green, when you earn the right, then you can show that and go in the middle of the pitch and thump your chest. When Jurgen Klopp's doing it in front of the cop, when he's Champions League or he's won the Premier League, then you can do it. But I don't think you do it right. Maybe you tell me I'm wrong as fans, but I don't think a manager should do that until he's earned the right to do it.
No, I totally agree with that. Totally agree.
That was I would have done differently. It was maybe a bit more vocal, not doing that the shirt thumping, but I would have maybe been a bit more vocal in the press and not being so respectful, shall we say.
Mm.
We have to mention Joey Barton, mate. Obviously, he came up here. For himself, you know, he's got a lot to say about you, mate, as I'm sure you're aware. But, you know, I think he came up here thinking it was going to be easy. It's not been easy, so he's looked for somebody to blame in you. But obviously, that's just my opinion. What's your memories of Joey and that period of time?
Without being rude, Jamie, I'm not going to get involved in the squad. People can say whatever they want. If you can speak to Tav and ask him, you can speak to other players and ask them, Andy Halliday, Rob Kiernan, or Wes Foderingham, and ask them who's right. Kenny Miller, Lee Wallace, top players like that. Speak to them and see who's right. So I'm not going to get involved in the spat with Joey. He was obviously a very, very talented player. He was Championship Team of the Year beforehand. Yeah, maybe underestimated it. Maybe for whatever reason. But what happened was, in my mind, unacceptable, and we did what we had to do. The problem in the Scottish media is they knew we were in a legal case, and we couldn't say anything. And every day we didn't say anything, silence from Ibrox. Ibrox remains nothing. Tumbleweed blown through Ibrox as they refused to state that on Joey Barton. We weren't allowed to, and the press knew it, but they just good cop, bad cop. We were the bad cop second year, and they just rammed it home. So it's unfortunate when people say things in the press, but listen, I'm not going to get drawn into that. Joey, I hope is well and doing whatever he wants to do.
That's fair enough. No, that's fair enough. Can't argue with that. The ending towards your Rangers tenure didn't obviously turn out the way you wanted. Can you clear up a few things about the resignation? No resignation?
There was no resignation, Corey. And David Weir will quite rightly tell you there was no resignation. And I'm sorry if I've told this story before, but the simple fact is, we had a board meeting where we were 18 points behind Celtic. It was Celtic's best ever year in their history, invincible year. And we come up, we were second in the table 2 year. Now, we just got promoted, and the KPI for the third year was European football. Fair enough. This was the second year, not the third year. So we're sitting in second, but we were 18 points behind you. Doesn't matter. I told you the budget was 5 times. You had players on 25, 30, 35. We had players on 2, 3, 5. That's the truth of it. No exaggeration. So therefore, I sensed in a board meeting, suddenly you sense the atmosphere changed. Didn't think any of it. Okay, fine. And I was preparing for a cup game at the weekend. I was at home on Friday night, and literally my phone jumped to 8:59. And then I saw on a ticker tape, I was watching Sky Sports News, and it came up saying Mark Warburton's resigned. I'm looking, and my phone's now jumping all over the place. So I phoned Davey, and I went, Davey, I think I've just been sacked. He went, so have I. I said, why is that? And David Weir resigns from Rangers. Neither of us ever resigned. We never had any conversation with Stuart Robertson for days beforehand. No, nothing. And I said to the club, if you can show me any call that I've made or letter or email, anything suggesting we would ever resign from a club like Rangers, then away you go. There was nothing, Corey, because we never did. Simple as that. And I just feel sorry that a club holds itself in its high esteem, and it's a privilege to be a manager of a club like that, acted in that way at the end, because it was totally inappropriate for a club of Rangers stature. And we were second, by the way, in the table. That's the biggest frustration. It was purely, what you learn is purely the gap to Celtic that matters. It's beating Celtic, and for Celtic, it's just beating Rangers. That's the truth of it. And maybe your previous question, had I known that was the only driving force, I could have been more vocal in the press about budgets. I wasn't. Brendan was doing a great job, and we had players who worked their socks off. But you had players like Armstrong and Brown and Griffiths and Rogic and et cetera, et cetera.
What I don't understand is why did Rangers do that? I mean, how could they not just came out and said, listen, it's not working out, we don't want Mark here anymore, time to move on. But yet to go down the road of just lying makes no sense.
I don't get it, Jamie. And as I say, I'm not saying I've enormous respect and love for the club, because it's a privilege. I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself, but it's a privilege. But I don't know why, and that was a frustration. That was a frustration. So I'm not going to come out and slag anyone. It's just a frustration for someone like Davey in the Hall of Fame, for him to see the club act like that. It was just wrong. It was purely the gap to Celtic. But the KPI to be in Europe in year 3, and yet here we are in Europe in year 2, and we're being dismissed. So I got to be honest, it left a really bad taste. It angers me to this day. I've got a lot of good friends in Glasgow. I spoke to a good friend yesterday in a long chat with him, and it just angers me that we should have been allowed to do the job. And if I'm honest, would we have come second that year? Yes, we would have done, absolutely. And would we have built for year 3? Yeah, absolutely. So easy for me to say now in hindsight, but I know we would have done. So just a frustration that we weren't given an opportunity.
What do you think now with Rangers, with the new investment with the 49ers? Do you think that would lead them on the more stable stability?
I hope so. They've gone in at Leeds, and you've seen the result there. I hope very much for Rangers that they get the level of investment and the backing and the support and the long-term planning. I know Kevin Thelwell, good guy, has gone in there. Russell, obviously a very good manager. You've got good people at the club. So I hope very much that they have a really consistent and solid period of growth, and they can build on it. That's what I hope very much as a Rangers fan. I'm sure you two gentlemen disagree with me completely, but I hope very much that the club has a really sustained period of growth now.
What I think is, I think Rangers fans need to be patient though, because they've given him a 3-year contract. It's not going to happen overnight. They need to get the standard of players in to compete with Celtic, and I think that's a year or two away. Mark, I don't know what you think.
I think the truth of it is, though, Jamie, is that probably the wage bill is the second highest in Scotland. So he'll probably have the second, I'm saying the second best, but he'll have a squad of players whose really only rival will be Celtic. And I think, I'm not being rude to anyone else, Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, anyone, I'm just saying that's probably the truth of it. So it's whether Russell, he plays a certain way and he wants his team to play that way. So he'll get that team working. The only question mark will come down to the same as myself. It'll come down to beating Celtic. That's it. It'll come down to closing the gap and beating Celtic. And Celtic's job will be to stop Rangers doing that. And the question will be whether Celtic invest and build or whether they sit back. So that'll be the interest. But I think it'll just be the same. It'll be Celtic and Rangers, and just see how close he can get to Celtic.
I think Celtic fans, a lot of Celtic fans I talk to anyway, I think they're a bit in denial, to be honest. I mean, look at the last few Old Firm games. I don't think the gap's as massive as a lot of people think.
No, it's not. And as I say, it's a fine margin. But I think, Russell will build on it, and they want a good pre-season, which he'll get. And as I say, if the first result goes their way, and if they get a bit of momentum behind them, if they can have a strong start, 4 or 5 early wins, and then they'll get that.
It was a short but eventful stint in Forest. What was your biggest takeaways from the role and at the club?
I left Rangers. 2 weeks later, I get a call. Would I meet Mr. Marinakis in London? He was taking over Forest. Never met the previous owner, Mr. Fawaz. Met Mr. Marinakis, very brief, like my CV, want to offer me the job. It was like that. Asked him certain things and we got a chat, but very brief. There's a huge club, European history. They were obviously fighting relegation at the bottom of the league, and a lot of young players. I went in there and it was a mess. I say that, 36 players, 11 loan players speaking different languages. It was all over the place. So we had to trim it down, and we avoided relegation. On the last day of the season, we had to beat Blackburn had to better our result by 2 goals, and they were playing my old team, Brentford. Right? We're playing Ipswich, and we go 1-0 down, and I hear Blackburn are 2-0 up at Brentford, and I'm thinking, oh my God, here we go. But I'm cursing Brentford, you can imagine. And then we came by. We were very strong. Second, I won the game 3-1, and we stayed up. But it just shows you in football, we stayed up and had all the problems that we had, and I took a couple of those in a second. Tony Mowbray gets relegated with Blackburn, but can clear out the squad, clear out things, and start again, get promotion, and then they're pushing for the playoffs the next year. So it just shows you that it's not always the right thing. Sometimes it's good to clear the decks. We stayed up, and the KPIs for Mr. Marinakis were lower the age of the squad. It was 29 and a bit. Lower the age, lower the numbers. It was 36, and give the club a consistent mid-table finish. There were the 3 KPIs. In December, we were 12th. The average age of the squad was under 23, and there was 24 players in the squad. So we have every KPI, and the chairman walks in and sats you. Just go, football, there you go. There's nothing you can say. In no other industry, I've come from banking where your KPIs are sacrosanct and you hit your KPIs, and suddenly it was like, but we're 12th, yeah, and you wanted mid-table. We're 12th out of 24. You want to reduce the age of the squad. It was 29, now it's 23 less, yeah. And the squad was 36, now it's 24. What haven't we done? But that's football, and you have to get used to it, gents. And I know the fans will have their say because quite rightly they pay their money, but football's just bizarre sometimes.
Must be hard to try to keep motivated, but you know what I mean? Obviously, you hit all the targets, and then you still lose your job. It's crazy.
It's just what football is, though. There'll be people who say it's very hard, and especially coming from an owner like Matthew, who had 5 great years and a consistent owner, and then bang, this happens. But you have to get used to it, Jamie. Otherwise, it drives you mad. Because you know why? The difference from any other business is the emotion and the passion of the sport. So go back to Rangers. every board member is a passionate blue. Every Celtic board member will be a passionate green. And that's the fact of it. You know, you lose sight of it because passion and emotions become involved. And people said to me, "Oh, what's a more pressurized job? Being in charge of the city in billions of dollars or working football?" It's football because in the city, it's like your P&L, your profit and loss target. In football, if Rangers lose a game, then half the city and fans around the world are in mourning almost. So it's emotions of everyone else that you're responsible for, not just yourself. So you just have to accept it. It's Nottingham Forest happened, and you just bemused. At that point, you're thinking, go overseas. And then I was offered I thought I had a really big job in the UK, and then QPR came calling. So that was sort of went on from there.
You did end up going to QPR. Was that a bit of a no-brainer then? You just wanted to get straight back in?
I enjoyed it, yeah. I enjoyed QPR London club. Again, go in, they had to cut budgets, had to sell 5 players on the film, release 5 players, including the likes of people like Jake Bidwell I'd worked with and signed at Brentford, but couldn't afford it. But we went young, and obviously Liam Kelly and Lee Wallace came down. But I really enjoyed it. You know, they'd finished 21st the season before, and we had a solid first season, build it, and then second season we had a nightmare start where we were playing really, and you as fans will know, we were playing really good football and just could not score. There was one game, Bristol City, where I think we had 27 attempts on goal and lost like 1-0 to a penalty or something stupid like that. And you look at it, go, you're near to losing your job. And then at Christmas, we went to Norwich away, who were top of the league, drew 1-1 and should have won the game in the last minute, missed a sitter. And then from that moment on, it was Man City followed by us who had the most successful number of points in 2021. Only City got, I think, 2 more points than we got for the whole lot. From January 21 to December 21, we were the second most in the country. And we had a great run. And we got right up to 8th, or whether it's in the Championship. But still, budget was still way down the bottom, near the bottom of the league. But we had a really good run. So that was a really enjoyable time. Then the next year, we were top 6 right the way through. Great start. We were flying. And then, without sounding like a disgruntled manager, we had a horrific injury crisis. We lost 5 goalkeepers. We literally had to go and youth team goalkeeper was having injuries. We lost David Marshall was great. We lost our main keeper, Senny Dieng, to surgery. I'd never seen anything like it. We lost our centre half, Bob Dickey. We lost our striker, Chrissy Willett. Lost our centre midfielder. And you just go, wow. And we just couldn't deal with that level of loss. So we finished, as I say, 9th or something. And apparently it wasn't after finishing there before, it was top 6. Our budget was still something like 17th, 18th. But again, it's football, and you just can't. I know you as fans maybe, you voice your opinion about managers and coaches, but sometimes what goes on is nuts. And they haven't finished without being arrogant in any way. They haven't finished that high since. So it just shows you it's not always the right decision. But going back to my earlier point, they write the checks. They got the responsibility of paying the bills. So who am I to criticise?
How did you approach the development of young players with the demand of the Championship when you were at QPR?
It was tough. That was a tough one because they had an academy, Les Ferdinand, the director, and Chris Ramsey, 2 very knowledgeable football people, but they were sort of saying to the board that, the kids are there, they're good enough to go through, and the kids at the time weren't. We had Ebrichi Eze, of course, from day one. That was obvious. Ilias Chair, obvious from day one. And played the young guys, absolutely, and tried to recruit young guys. But they have to be good enough, And then when we were told we had that moment where we played Norwich, we signed Stefan Johansson, a player well. I signed Steph and Charlie Austin. So you could say 2 senior players. But from that moment on, with Lee Wallace, we just flew. We were playing some really good stuff. We went on a great run of games, just raced up the table. And you can blend. Ebrichi Eze was always going to go on to the highest level. Ilias Chair, like another very talented Chrissy Willock. But they've got to be good enough. The Championship is ruthless. And you go places like Leeds away, Blackburn away, and then they go, oh, what about the lesser games? There's no lesser games because anyone beats anyone. If you go to Rotherham and you're not ready, you get your asses smacked. Simple as that. You can say in Scotland, you might say Celtic go to a certain club. I won't name the clubs, but you know who I mean. And you can say Celtic may give 2 or 3 players a rest or put them on the bench or whatever. You do that in the Championship and you get, honestly, I tell you now, doesn't matter who you go to. You can go to Wickham, you can go to Rotherham, you can go to any of these clubs, seemingly smaller clubs, and you'll get tonked because they're organised, they're hard working, they've got some good professionals in there. Then you've got the Sheffield Uniteds and the Blackburns and the Leeds and the Middlesbroughs and the Norwiches and Southamptons and Leicesters, and it's just a relentless league. 46 games, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. It's unbelievable league. It's a great league to be involved in. But honestly, you play young players. Yes, I'm a massive fan of young players. You've got to be really careful how you drop them in, drop them out again.
I think there's a very strong argument that the English Championship is better than the Premier League. Obviously not quality-wise, but entertainment-wise.
Entertainment-wise, Jamie, it's a great league. Because, as I say, you know, if Liverpool plays someone, they're always good games. It's a Premier League's the best brand in the world. But you know yourself, 9 times out of 10, for example, Liverpool will win that game, or City, or whoever it may be. But in the Championship, as I say, honestly, you look at it and teams, don't forget, teams like Sunderland and Ipswich were in League One a couple of years ago. Now they're in the Premier League. You know, Ipswich come down, of course, but Kieran gets them up 2 promotions, and there's some big clubs. Look at Bolton and these type of clubs, Sheffield Wednesdays, and these clubs have been down and back up again. Then you got the Sheffields, and so Leeds have come up, but you know, you look at the clubs that have come down, Southampton, Leicester, etc. These are big clubs coming down. So it's tough. It's really tough, but it's a great league.
You mentioned Ilias Chair there. I was having a wee look earlier on. He's 27 now. Are you surprised that he's went to like a Premier League club?
Yeah, he's good enough to. He was good enough to. As I say, I hope very much he hasn't missed his window. He's a very talented boy, very confident, but very respectful. Not a lot. I got a lot of time for Ilias. Really like him as a player and a character, and he's still worth. You know, there's so much talent there. He probably needs a move to reinvigorate him and get it out of him.
You mentioned a few of the youth players that you've developed over the years, but has there been a player that's surprised you how well they've their careers went on?
The one that I've got obviously enormous respect for is Stewie Dallas. So signed Stewie Dallas from Northern Ireland for $5,000. It was $5,000 we paid for him, and he came over. He was raw, but I saw him in Belfast on a wet, filthy night. I got drenched watching him play. It was horrendous weather, and he was excellent. And we signed him, and the chairman was chuffed with the $5,000. We would have probably gotten a 10, but it was the best $5,000 ever spent. But then he came in and he had to accustom to full-time training, and had a couple of niggling injuries because his body was adapting. But then what an athlete. And you saw him. He just, Marco Bielsa's favourite. He could play anywhere, Stewie. I kid you not. He would play right back, left back, centre half if you asked him, centre forward, right wing, left wing, centre mid. He could play anywhere. And I think he did for Leeds. I think he played most positions apart from goalkeeper. But I think if I look at one that I really enjoyed working with and watching his career progress from where he was, it would be Stewie Dallas.
Over the last couple of years, you were at West Ham with David Moyes. What was it like? What with David? Day to day.
We knew each other, Jamie, from actually over in Florida. We both went purely. I was in the city. He was in Everton, and we used to come. The families would come away purely by chance. We ended up starting playing golf together, and I was in the city. I was in the football at the time, and then, as I say, we were friends. And I saw him in Naples, in Florida, and he called me a couple of days of golf and said, "Do you fancy coming to West Ham?" And I had 2 offers, but the ownership was changing. So I was waiting for one in the Championship and another one. I wasn't sure. And in hindsight, 2 things. One, it was great. We enjoyed the Europa Conference success, and that was a fantastic experience and forever thankful. But I didn't like being number 2. It's not for me. It's just not for me. And I don't say that in an arrogant way, but I've had years and years of being in charge of dealing rooms and football teams and academies, and then suddenly David's the boss. And I was always very respectful, always, but it just killed me. It killed me that I couldn't control training, I couldn't control times, and I was like, wow. And I hope I don't come across as arrogant, not at all. But after being so used to controlling everything, to controlling nothing, it was just nah. So, and I think I probably killed. You know, I'd probably hurt my managerial chances. I'm a better manager now than I was in 2015 for job taking over Rangers. I know now that I could walk into Rangers. I don't say this in an arrogant way. I'm saying I know now that I could comfortably walk into a big club. But the fact is, you do yourself a disservice, and then the boat quickly moves on, and the next tranche comes through, and then the trend was going younger and foreign managers, probably cheaper managers, and then you realise. So was it a mistake? It probably was. I love the experience of working with world-class players like Declan Rice and Jared Bowen and Paquetá and Cressy and top players. Love that. Love the experience of Europe. But I think I probably did my managerial career a disservice.
You snookered my next question because I was going to ask if it was refreshing being on the other side. I was going to say, was it better not having the direct pressure but still being heavily involved?
Hated every minute of it. Hated it because you couldn't impact it. Well, you could, but you couldn't, if that makes sense. I would sit there, and as a manager, head coach, whatever you want to call it, I would say QPR, turn around to John Eustace and Neil Bamford, and I'd say, what do you think? Always, Davey Weir's fantastic, top man. Davey, what do you think? But at the end of the day, you've got to make the call. And I love that. It's like trading. Do I buy the dollars? Do I sell dollars? Do I buy 20 million? Do I buy 30? Do I buy 5? What do I do? And they can say, yeah, it looks big. But at the end of the day, you've got to say buy or sell. And I love that. I said to you earlier, I love that black and white nature that it's down to me. It's not like Jamie can blame Corey or Corey can blame Mark, or it's no. It's down. It's your call. And that's what I loved about managing, and that's what I really missed about it.
I think that's very, very refreshing to hear, because that's a very good job. Being David Moyes' number 2 at West Ham, you could have just seen your day. You could have went with him, whatever, if he was wanting you at Everton or whatever. You could have moved on to somewhere else as an assistant. But obviously, you've got that thirst for trying to get back in the management.
Yeah, I've got a big job over here in terms of managing women's professional, men's professional, elite academy teams. The academy we bought has got 10,000 children in it. It's huge. But I love being on a touchline. And this sounds really arrogant. And you'd say, if you passed yourself by date, if you're not ready to carry on doing that at the intensity you need to do. I know I'm more than ready to do that. I know that. I'm very, very confident in my abilities and dealing with players and people, and knowledge of the game has improved because you're always better off. There's a Vialli book. You read Gianluca Vialli's book. In Italy, when you're sacked as a manager, you're seen as being better because you're more experienced for having done it. In the UK, if you're sacked, it's like a black mark on your career. And it's two very different. You see, like Gattuso's now the Italian manager, sacked, but Italian manager now. And it's that type of different mindset. So I know where I am as a manager. I know I could walk in, not in an arrogant way, no tones of arrogance at all. But I know my CV is strong. What I did at Brentford, what I did at Rangers. So Rangers, we got promotion by 11 points. We beat Celtic, got to the cup final, won the training cup in the first year, and we're second in the Premier League. So my CV is strong off the back. You get sacked. Why? I don't know. That's another story. But your CV is strong. Brentford is strong. Nottingham Forest, you kept the team up. You're mid-table, solidified as a team. Strong. You go to QPR, have years there. They haven't been up to that level again since you left on much less budget. So you say to yourself, an experience of working with world-class players at West Ham, David, etc. So you say you're in a better position now than ever before, but you're seen as being probably past yourself by date. And that's there'll be many managers like that who will give you their story, but I can only tell you how I genuinely feel, that I feel I've got a lot to offer, and you get very frustrated sometimes.
Well, obviously you must have a great life out there just now, mate, and you're enjoying what you're doing. You're saying that, but
yeah,
obviously you want to get back into it at some point. But what kind of level? So if you want to get back into it, would you want to get into the top level again, or would you go down the levels to get back up?
No, I came over here, Jamie, because I was getting offered. If I go back 3 or 4 years, I'm getting offered jobs with 3, 4, 5-year contracts at big clubs, and then suddenly you can't get an interview for those clubs, and you say why? And it's the trend has gone to young foreign managers. So I'm not going to, without being rude, I've been very privileged to work at some big clubs, but I've done good work at those clubs, not in an arrogant way, but I've not gone there and failed. So I'm not prepared to go. So I took the job over here because it was a good offer in terms of the opportunity to come and work and be involved in women to start a franchise. So I'm very, very happy doing that. But as I say, I was very frustrated for the 18 months prior to coming out here that you can't get a job when you go, I'm actually at my prime now, and you still can't get those jobs. But as I say, owners are owners. They write the checks, and more foreign owners coming in, more foreign technical directors coming in, and you got to find a way to get those jobs. And as I say, I couldn't get an interview for jobs that were being given to people, and I felt to myself, you know what, if I can't get an interview here, the market's definitely changed. So I can't really answer the question, Jamie. People know what you're about. I think you just got to try and conduct yourself. I've got to do a really good job here, and then you never know where your career takes you. Simple as that.
Right, that's a good place to end. Mark, I know you're a very busy man over there and stuff, so really appreciate your time. I know we're a couple of Celtic fans, mate, but we've got nothing but respect for you, and
I appreciate
really,
that.
honestly, wish you all the best for the future, and good luck, mate.
No, Jenny, appreciate it. Corey, appreciate it. Really good of it. You got my number. If I could ever be of help, give me a call at any time.
Really appreciate that, Mark.
Thanks. Cheers.
Gents, all the best. Have a good evening.
Take it easy, man.
Bye.